Hi, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and get started with chapter 7 from our textbook. We're going to be focusing on reports, both formal and informal. Just a quick flag about this particular chapter and this particular section. This is a pretty big chapter. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be splitting this presentation up. So there's going to be a part one of this video. There will be a specific slide where it says we're going to be taking a break. I'll stop recording. So at that time, you can continue with the second video if you would like to. You can focus on it on another day, take, a walk, come back to the second video. But there's just a lot of content. And also with video recording, sometimes it's hard to upload a very long video. So I'm just going to divide it up into two sections. And so that way, make sure you know to obviously view the first video and then go into the second video. Okay. So, what we're going to be focusing on, like I said, is reports. And why are we going to be focusing on reports? Well, reports communicate the results of research and activities in your organization. And also, this is a writing course. This is what we're going to be learning about. This is what we're going to be focusing on. Also, your first report is coming up soon. So, it's important to go ahead and review these formal and informal reports. Now, reports may be something as simple as a single page form, like an activity report, or even something over 100 pages, like an analysis of a major equipment failure. But whatever it is, like I said, it communicates the results of your research and the activities in your organization. And this is where you relay that information to your readers. So, some general guidelines for reports across the board, doesn't matter if they're formal or informal. Always remember to plan before you start writing. So, with this, you want to think about your purpose. Who are your readers going to be? What are going to be the needs and expectations? You want to separate facts from opinions because this is going to be a research report. This is going to be an analysis. This isn't your personal opinion. This is just what the numbers say. This is just what the data says. This is what you have found. So be clear about that. So always use labels and headings and sections such as like here, findings, conclusions, recommendations. So that way your readers know, like, oh, this is not just your opinion. You are actually giving me the facts and the numbers. You want to make sure your text is also visually appealing. So think about bulleted points for lists, numbers for longer list, and like I mentioned, headings and subheadings. You're going to hear me say headings and headings a lot in this chapter because those are going to be so important, especially once we get into the formal reports, where those can be sometimes anywhere from like 10, 5, 6, 10 pages or even more, depending on your field. You want to make sure you use illustrations for clarification. Sometimes a simple figure, chart, graph goes a long way to help your readers understand what you're trying to say. Some people are visual learners where they need to see that. So always be mindful. Remember our first presentation, always be mindful about your readers. And you want to make sure you edit carefully. I cannot stress this enough. Nothing will shatter your credibility than a bunch of typos and error. So always proofread, triple check your numbers, check for format, make sure you know your font, the size, everything is the same across the board. Did you mention that, like, oh, there will be attachments when you send this report? Make sure you include the attachments. Always ask a colleague, two or three, to proofread your work. Now, for informal reports. Usually, these are anywhere from like 2 to 5 pages. Usually, there's more content than a simple letter or a simple memo, but usually, an informal report is in letter or memo format. So, and if this is going out to a reader outside of your organization, they're usually called a letter report. If your reader is within your organization, this is usually called a memo report. And there are some general guidelines when it comes to informal reports. So, like I mentioned, you want to use a letter or memo format for your informal report. And I'm sure you remember the ABC method. Always use the ABC format for organization. Remember, that's abstract, body, conclusion. Very simple. It keeps your readers on track and also helps them understand what they're reading. It just keeps everything clean and simple. You want to create the abstract as an intro summary. Abstracts give the readers a summary of like the big picture, and make sure you label as such. So if you can think of it as like label this section as like simply put introduction. You can put summary, you can put introduction summary, but always make sure there's some brief abstract as the introduction. Put important details in the body. Remember to use headings, as I said, headings. Remember to use headings to help guide your readers, and proceed subheadings with like a lead in passage to give a preview of what they're going to be reading. Focus your attention on the in the conclusion. The conclusion section gives details about major findings, conclusions, and if called for, recommendations. And of course, use attachments for less important details, but you think that still might be relevant to the reader. This usually helps save on space, on content. And like I said, if it's something not really important, but you think a reader might be interested in, or it's like supplemental information, that's when you just say, like, see attachment. There are some examples I wanted to provide on this type of format. There were a couple that I wanted to include. As you can see, this is like one particular format. You can see, memo at the top, logo, who is this going towards? And then there's like the brief introduction. And then there's a table that breaks down all of the information. I kind of like this format because it's very simple, quick, and it shows the reader where to go. However, some readers, it might look a little messy. Some readers might get overwhelmed. They just want, like, give me the bullets. What's this for? And that's what the next example is showing. So as you can see, still kind of the same format, the date, who's going to be the reader, who you directing this to. There's a brief introduction and then recommendations. There's a brief introduction, your findings, and then the bulleted points of recommendations. Very simple. You can even see that they show the reader what they're going to be reviewing. My recommendations are as follows. It might seem repetitive. It might seem like, should I be doing this? Remember from the first chapter, always write for your writers. So if you think this is going to help them understand, make sure you include it. So that was informal reports. So the rest of this video, the rest of the slides, which is going to be a lot, are going to be focused on formal reports. Formal reports cover very complex projects and are directed to readers at all variety different technical levels. This usually includes anywhere from 6 to 10 pages of text. However, this isn't really defined by length. Sometimes you're doing a simple analysis of a training program. Sometimes you're going to be drafting an environmental report, which can actually go beyond the 10 pages and can be 50 to 100 pages. So remember, and also remember, this can be directed to both internal or external readers. So remember, as from our first chapter, you're always writing for your different readers, okay? So 3 principles when it comes to formal reports is you're writing different parts for different readers. You're going to place important information first, and you're going to be consistently repeating your key points when necessary. Like I said, remember how the first chapter reviewed different types of readers and how you need to write for them? That's what those 3 principles show. Different parts for different readers. Remember, what if you're writing to a decision maker, but they don't have time to read all, 50 pages? So they're going to be looking at your table of contents. What are the headings? What's your introduction? What are the findings? Place important information first. That's usually, your abstract, your introduction, table of contents. Give a preview to your readers. And like I said, repeat key points when necessary. Continuously repeat. What's the purpose? What are we analyzing? What's the main point? Why are we doing this? Always remind your readers so that way they don't get lost in the weeds of the data and the analysis. Okay. We're going to stop here because, like I said, we're going to really focus on formal reports because that's what your projects are going to be. And that's mainly what you might be doing in your careers and in your fields. So we're going to take a break because there's going to be about, I believe, nine. We're going to go over formal reports. There's usually nine guidelines, and we're going to be going over each specific guideline. So we're going to pause here, go take a break, continue with the next video if you want to, whatever you might do, but we're taking a pause right here, and we'll be back with part two.